Welcome to season 3 of Media Rebel Unplugged. We are very excited today to be kicking this off with our guest, Sarah Vojtek from Stewart's Caring Place. She is their president and CEO and also a returning guest. Welcome once again, Sarah.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This is so much fun.
You're welcome. I am so happy to have you back because since having you on the last time, we've really gotten to know each other. I've been so honored to work directly with her in Stewart's Caring Place with a fellow colleague of mine, Redpoint Digital, particularly Eric Vaughn, as we are helping produce a video that will be played at their annual fundraising event that you are going to hear more about today. Without further ado, Sarah, would you mind just reminding everybody who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Sure. Thanks again for having me, Janice. This is so fun. And like you said, it's you always made it easy, but it's just so much easier now that we do know each other a little bit more. My name is Sarah Vojtek, President and CEO of Stewart's Caring Place. I am a mother, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, a colleague, and a breast cancer survivor. So those are all titles that I don't take lightly and that I wear with honor. I'm a breast cancer survivor, diagnosed in 2020. I think my first episode, we went through a lot of what I experienced in my journey, but that ultimately led me to the position at Stewart's Caring Place. And then our working together and coming together. We were talking before we started hit record here, but the world has a way of putting people in your life that you don't necessarily expect. And I think getting to know you has just been an example of one of those times.
Yes, I have to completely agree. I was telling Sarah that the last time I had her on, my best friend, who I consider a sister, that day that she was on was having her surgery for bladder cancer. She had just been diagnosed maybe a week or two prior to you coming on. And now today, my friend is going back to find out if she is cancer free. So I will put an update in the description because we are very hopeful for her to have a good result of that. So I told Sarah, I think maybe it's a little emphamin that it just by chance always happens to be when she's on. This is something we had planned well in advance. And we'll have another link to the video that we did prior so you can learn more about Sarah and her personal journey, because I think it is truly motivating to hear about. Not only are you going through this cancer diagnosis, something so new to you, but then you're like taking that a step further of helping other people, as you call them, participants and their family and their friends as well. And I feel like with a lot of people where they end up in life, they don't get there easily. There's always some journey and adversity that gets us there. So I think it's also different for people to be able to turn to a resource center like Stewart's and have others who work there, volunteer there, participate there, and can listen and actually identify with what they're going through, as opposed to maybe having a further view from it. And what stood out recently is we talked to one of the families that will be in the video that we're shooting. And I wanted to give them some privacy and not use their name, but they were great. They were so funny. And the way that they handled the cancer diagnosis, I think some people, again, we've talked before, everybody's journey is different, but the way that they did it with such grace and humor was just amazing to me and to us as Eric and I were talking to them and all the other people that are going to be a part of this video, just to hear all their stories. I can't imagine for you how many have really just kind of, I don't know, I think it becomes a part of you.
It does become a part of you. And it's something that we as the staff have to balance because we care for every single person that comes through our doors. Every single person trusts us, meaning Stewart's Caring Place, with the care of themselves or the care of their loved ones. And so we really take that personally, but we also have to put some distance between us because we end up getting involved in all of their lives. Their story becomes part of our story. And, we just really love everyone who comes through. As a staff, we talk a lot about self-care because that's important, because we hear about the families who deal with it with humor, as you were talking about, but not everybody is at that place. So as a staff, we close the staff doors sometimes and we have to cry together, scream together through frustration, sometimes laugh together, sometimes celebrate together when we hear stories. But it's really important that we find that balance for ourselves and each other too, because there are so many phenomenal stories and they all have different endings.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too, that you have all those ranges of emotions to go through and stories to go through because of everyone's journey being different. And I know we talked to one of the participants that will be doing a voiceover. She writes poetry, and they have a book of poetry that was done by participants. And it's just amazing to read the poems that are in there. But one thing that she said was, for a place that you would probably think would be so doom and gloom, it's actually full of so much life there. And I know that's one thing that we took from that too. And we walked in the first time that we got the tour of Stewart's was, for one, the size of it, because you just don't know how to picture the size of the building and the resource center as a whole. So I just want to kind of introduce the audience for those who maybe haven't ever seen anything quite like what you have. When you walk in, you're greeted with somebody and it's a smiling face. So you immediately feel welcome. You give them tours of the center. And then to see, you have art, you have this beautiful library, which I love the story behind the library. You do nutrition, you go massage, Reiki, yoga. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And that, I think, is what makes you so unique. And one participant we spoke with, they just took a trip overseas, and he said it went into this group that they have, a
Yeah, support group.
support group, and he said there were some that weren't sure if they could travel because of cancer. And he was like, and here I am, like, I'm still doing the support call because we can do these virtually. Yeah, I have to schedule my medicine at a different time because of the time difference, but it doesn't have to stop you living your life.
No, absolutely not. And one of the things we've tried to be is those wraparound services. So we know that during diagnosis, sometimes the patient themselves, but also the caregivers, the family, the friends have their heads down just trying to get their loved one through the treatments, right? And then all of a sudden you're 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years removed, and either the patient or the caregiver, spouse, family, friends feel this emotional instability from what they just went through and had never really dealt with it. So our services are offered at no cost to anyone who feels the mental or emotional impact of a cancer diagnosis. And that is regardless of age, stage, or phase of the journey. So no expiration on services, because you never know when your brain is going to process what you or a loved one just went through and what that is going to mean to you. So, we rattled off all the things that we do wonderfully, wig salons and physical fitness classes and family and children's programming, just anything that eases the burden. Again, not just for the patient, but for their families and friends.
So let's talk about how all of that is made possible, because that's what brought you here today. And I know it's sold out, which is great news. But for those listening, they can still donate. If they're local, they can still volunteer. How did that come to be?
Yeah, so our Butterfly Gala is 22 years old. We were founded in 2003, and the first Butterfly Gala was held in 2003 to get some seed money for this concept of a cancer wellness center in the community. It was led by Mimi Sherloff. Her husband, Stewart, is our namesake. A little bit of history. Stewart was a podiatrist and was diagnosed with lung cancer in the early 2000s. And at the time of his diagnosis, he and his wife Mimi had two young daughters at home, Abby and Shelby, and they all were dealing with this diagnosis of Stewart differently. And at the time, there weren't many places to go for the loved ones of the cancer patient, right? So, like, cancer patients receive care, mostly medical treatments in the hospital systems, but there's sometimes offerings of counseling and things like that. But there wasn't at the time many resources for families who were also feeling the impact of this diagnosis. So Stewart unfortunately passed, but Mimi wanted to keep this idea alive that they brainstormed together of a cancer wellness center for the entire family and network of a cancer patient. So to do so, they held a butterfly gala at a private home, invited their friends and families and some people of the community who may be interested in supporting a little cancer wellness center. And we're able to raise the seed money to get us all started.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And you also have a second location now too.
We do. So late last year, we merged with an organization down in Canton, Aunt Susie's Cancer Wellness Center. Very small organization, but similar mission. Amazingly, was volunteer run all the way up from the executive director down, all volunteer based, and they were just at a point where they couldn't sustain it any further on the model that they were currently using. Their executive director, Dr. Dina Rooney, was a retired oncologist and had often dreamt while she was in her practice of bringing Stewart's Caring Place to Stark County. She knew of us up in Fairlawn, but it's a drive. And the last thing you want to do if you or a loved one doesn't feel well enough or can't be left alone is drive another 35 minutes plus to Fairlawn. And so when they got to a place where they could no longer take it any further, they approached us about taking them on. We now have 2 locations, Fairlawn and Canton. And so this Butterfly Gala not just supports our Fairlawn location now, but our overall operations of the entire brand.
Wow, that's great. I love to see that you guys are growing because there is, like you said, there's such a need. And for people that are diagnosed and they're not feeling their best, even though it really isn't too far for the average person that's healthy, that can be a lot for somebody. So I think that's wonderful to see that you're growing.
Yeah.
This is, and now another resource for them. So with the donations that are received, what else do you have going on to help raise money? Because I thought I saw something. There's some fun things that you do to raise money, some auctions.
Yeah. So at the Butterfly Gala, we have a live auction, we have a silent auction. We of course have a Raise the Paddle, where we ask those who are in attendance to open their hearts and open their pocketbooks to be able to support us. It is our largest fundraiser. We are fully supported by the generosity of the community. So we just listed all the things that we offer. We never ask anyone who uses our services for any money. We are not government funded, nor do we receive any, nor do we bill insurance because we are non-medical. So fundraisers like this are really how we're able to continue to sustain our operations. So yeah, the Butterfly Gala itself is a really big, exciting event. It's fun. It's a celebration, but it is a time for us to ask the community to continue to support us financially as well.
Like, can they find that on your website?
Yeah, on our website, which is stewartscaringplace.org, there is a Give Now button, and on there is a donation page. And then there's also other options for giving time, talent, and treasure. And then if you follow us on social media, specifically Facebook, again, Stewart's Caring Place, a week prior to the gala, so around August 15th or 16th, we will launch our silent auction. So people who aren't in attendance can still participate in the silent auction. There are some great items. There's sports tickets, private dinners, children's baskets, just a lot of fun things. So that's another way for people to support. Unfortunately, I don't have the link right now, but again, if people follow along on Facebook, we'll be promoting it there and launching it once it's ready to go.
Awesome. I think that one thing that you just mentioned too, that a lot of people don't normally think about. So you mentioned children's baskets. I don't think many people think of the resource that you are for children.
That's great. And it's one of the misconceptions we hear. We often are asked, do we serve children who are diagnosed with cancer? And the answer is yes. We have great resources in this community in terms of the hospital systems that have resources for the children, but we have served many of them as well. A lot of the children that we serve are those children whose parent, sibling, grandparent, someone they're really close to just got diagnosed with cancer, and their little brains don't know what to do with that information and that emotion. So it can be anything from, we have a child life specialist on staff who can meet with the families and the children to talk about maybe what they're going through. We have counselors as well as partnerships with private practices that see children in their counseling services. And then we do fun things where we don't even have to talk about cancer, but we just let the children be children and enjoy time away from maybe what they're dealing with or seeing at home. So whether that be through our summer camps, we do holiday parties around Halloween and the winter holiday months. We do family fun nights, just really, again, an opportunity to give maybe the parents a break, maybe them an opportunity as a family unit to create memories, just whatever that may be.
I love that you have resources for children. I think that that's so vital. And as someone who was a child when I lost my grandmother from pancreatic cancer, I wish I would have had that resource. I was lucky in the sense that I had family to rally around me, but I think it's also hard when the family themselves are going through it.
Yeah.
And for us, it was such a shocking diagnosis because my grandmother had gone in for a triple bypass. And so we thought it was just heart related. And then the doctor came out and said she has 3 weeks left to live and it's pancreatic cancer. You can't really prepare yourself for that, especially as a 14-year-old girl who's thrown into this. So I love that you have that resource. And we talked to one of the participants who has a 6-year-old daughter, and they were saying how for her, it's no different that, dad has cancer. She doesn't know any different. And so for kids, it's really good for this is their normal instead of it being this shocking thing, which it can be from time to time. Prior to us starting the recording, we were talking about even James Vanderbeek, and that's something he said too about his kids. They're very open with their children and talking to them about what they're going through. And I think that there are some families who will choose to shelter the children, and that's, of course, up to them on how they handle it. But I do think it's always so good to be able to talk to your kids about what's going on so they're not shocked.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't wish this journey on anyone, but what I'm starting to see from some of these public figures who are going through cancer is that they are being very vocal about the need for support mentally and emotionally of the families. Kate Middleton is one that I keep reading about who keeps calling out just how important this type of support is for the family unit and not just the patient. And so I think mental health and all the things that are related to that, the more we can talk and be open about it and make it so that it's something that people don't shy away from, something that people aren't embarrassed to admit. I think that that's just even better for the world.
Yeah, I think there's some people who I think they don't want people to know about the diagnosis because they don't want the attention.
Right.
Because there are some that are like, okay, so I've had family members for years that didn't care about me. And now all of a sudden, they want to be my best friend. And how are you doing? And they may not understand that this relative isn't open to that type
Yeah.
of attention right now. So, yeah, I get why some people want to keep that journey more private than others, but I do commend those public figures that are bringing the attention to it because it is really important. I think culturally, it's such a shift for us. Like you said, as we get into the mental health discussions, it's really important.
It really is. We honor everybody's privacy or whatever they're comfortable with. But I think, just as we can take the stigma away from a disease, whatever disease that may be, we're talking about cancer, obviously, but I think we need to remove stigmas when we talk about any type of disease and just be able to talk about it openly or as openly as you're comfortable with.
I have I have a rare condition that I don't normally disclose to people. I've been a little bit more open about recently because it comes with so many dietary restrictions for
Mm.
me that I feel like my list of what I can tolerate is much shorter now than like what I cannot tolerate. So I would say it's safer to assume that I cannot do that than what I can consume, which when I was younger, I felt more embarrassed and uncomfortable about it because it took them probably 15 years to diagnose me correctly. And I think that goes to even cancer diagnosis. You hear a lot. I just wrote a story the other day of this young girl in her 20s that she was about to get married. She was seemingly healthy and active. And then she kept going to the doctor. She was having some stomach problems and she ended up diagnosed with colorectal cancer. So, and unfortunately, stage 3 by the time they finally caught it, because she's like, I'm 27 and I feel like none of the doctors want to take this seriously, just kept telling me that I was just constipated. And then they found a really large tumor. So I think that we have to be advocates for our health. As you had talked about the first time you came on, having a family member of your own diagnosed is what threw you into advocating for your health too. And I think it was even your mom who kind of was like, hey, maybe you should go get the scan done.
Yeah, I think we are the only people who know what we're feeling in our bodies. And so if we think there's something wrong, I think it's important to keep challenging that until we get our answers. And, second opinions are a thing for a reason, as our third and fourth opinion. I think there's always answers out there, but sometimes you just have to push for yourself when something doesn't feel right.
Absolutely. And I think the more we start hearing these stories of, when I've heard them so many now, the more reason that you have to be vocal about it. I mean, even the smallest things, like I have a child of mine who is stubborn and he knows it because now he's an adult. And I think it's even harder as a parent when they're considered legally an adult, but they're still a kid. I'm told I can't do things because he is an adult. So I have to force him doing it, and so that's been an interesting journey in itself. So he had severe eczema and he was getting injections. Well, that started to not work anymore. So we had to change it to an oral medication and he had to go get blood work for it and he had to make an appointment and all these things. And now he's just like, I don't like being an adult.
Yeah, I know. Right.
It's just like, please take care of yourself. And it stresses you out as a parent because now you're like, you have to do this. I can't do this for you any longer.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So the joys of motherhood.
They are joys. Yes, they are. But what do they say? Small kids, small problems, big kids, big problems. So
Yes.
I feel like that. I didn't understand that. So I have a 10 and 12-year-old, and I didn't understand that when my girls were small, because I thought every problem was a big problem at that time. But now as they get older, I understand that even more.
Especially girls.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything upcoming that you're excited about?
Yeah, we also have a big pasta dinner that's happening in Canton for our Canton location. It's called Pasta for a Purpose. It is wonderful community spaghetti dinner. Aunt Susie's had great success in this event prior to us coming on, and I went to it last year just to see it and observe it. And it's such a great way that the community just comes together and brings their families, has a spaghetti dinner, and then there's raffle baskets and just again, a celebration, a way to bring people together to continue to raise some funds, but also just to be in the room of people who know what you're going through or who understand the different aspects of a cancer journey. So that's coming up on November 1st. We're really excited about that. And then really just, the continued community support. Our numbers are increasing. I think there's a few reasons for that. I think people are trusting us more and people know about us more often. We're getting referrals from a lot of the hospital systems and the physicians' offices. So our numbers are continuing to grow and we need the continued support from the community.
So does that also mean that your need for volunteers grows as that grows?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing volunteers in both Fairlawn and Canton, but you can never have too many. We are a small but mighty staff, as we like to say. And so there are always times where we need volunteers to help us pinch hit, whether it be at the front desk or folding laundry for the massage rooms. We have so many things that we need to get done. And our volunteers are such a great extension of our staff.
So if they want to get involved, they just go to your website, correct, and fill out a form?
Yeah, there's a form on there for volunteers, and then you'll be contacted by a member of our staff to kind of talk through what availability and interest there may be, and then get you plugged in. Yeah.
And if somebody listens to this outside of the gala date and they would like to make a donation, they can do that all year round.
Yeah, all year round, donations and also cash check, whatever works. We appreciate all of it. We often hear people say, I wish I could give more. And honestly, every little bit helps in a situation like ours where we are fully funded by the generosity of the community. So whatever people are able and willing to give, we are so very appreciative of.
That's great. I hope that people listening to this will feel motivated to make donations or to volunteer their time with you all. I know that as we continue our conversation, especially with the participants for the video shoot that we are doing, it's become really apparent, that many of them are like, I don't know where I would be without Stewart's Caring Place, to have that as a resource and to think that there are so many other areas and locations that don't have a resource center. And so I think it's probably another reason why I feel so strongly about it, because I feel like the more that people know what we have here, the more that you can grow and hopefully in other areas like you have just done with Canton. And so any way that we can continue to support you, we will do that ourselves.
Oh, I appreciate it. It has been such an honor getting to know you, getting to know Eric. I can't wait to see the final product. I'm sure we'll share it and then you could share it out too. But I think it's going to be a really impactful piece and I'm really excited. I think it's going to really show all the ways that we're able to support families and individuals, regardless of where they are in their cancer journey. So thank you helping us, put that story together.
Thank you. We're honored. We're absolutely honored to be able to work with you all. There's so much to tell. There's so many resources to cover. And because we do feel so passionately about it, we want to make sure that we tell the full story the best that we possibly can. So we're really excited too. And for the ability to attend the gala this year and to see what that's like and to participate in the silent auction and all the wonderful things. So thank you so much for taking the time to come here. I know this is such a busy time for you right now.
It's a welcome break, and anytime I get to, chat with a friend and talk about what we do, it's my honor.
Thank you so much. You can learn about Sarah on LinkedIn. I will have a link here in the description. And please go to stewartscaringplace.org to learn more about them and follow along as they continue to grow and be that resource for so many that are cancer participants and survivors and family and friends. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe and follow along with Media Rebel Unplugged so that we can continue to share stories like Sarah's and so many others. Have a great day.